welcome to the program. This is your host, Greg Fenton. Each week we explore topics and ideas related to the experience of people with conflict and look to promote the profession of conflict resolvers. We are available to connect by email at fentonmediation@gmail.com or by calling 647-227-4734. Visit us at our Facebook page to like us and Facebook group page to ask to become a member. Also visit YouTube channel Fenton Mediation to see videos of past shows. Listen to podcasts of Mediation Station on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Please follow us at our Twitter account at Fenton Mediation. The conversation today is titled Afghanistan. Will anything make a difference? And with me today will be Anthony Goldstein very shortly. The program is live each Sunday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time through Zoom. We will engage in conversation with everyone attending able to listen and watch. Microphones and webcams will be closed. If anyone wants to contribute, there are two options. One is to see the chat icon as a bubble at the bottom center of your screen for you to click to then type in a comment or question and then click to send. Or you can click on the reactions icon that is also on the bottom center of your screen, and then click on the hand icon for us to see you want to speak. We will open your microphone only for you to share your comment or question and then close the microphone once again. The show is being recorded for both video and audio purposes and will be available for public access afterward on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Google as podcasts as well. So as I mentioned, joining me for conversation is Anthony Goldstein, and we're going to speak on Afghanistan. Will anything make a difference? Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I'm, yeah, I'm okay.
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this with me. I appreciate this. This is the first time we're together doing this. I know you've been in the background for many shows, and you're fundamental. I want to put out a public outing of you to say, hey, thank you very much for the video editing skill sets that you provide for the show. Appreciate that.
Oh.
So how about starting this conversation by sharing some information about yourself, including what you do professionally?
Okay. Well, I'm an immigrant to this country. My family immigrated from South Africa when I was 8 years old in 1975. And obviously I've lived here in Toronto pretty much ever since. I feel grateful to be in this country. I think we have a very good life here. Yes, we certainly have a lot of problems. But it's a great place to be and a great place to grow up and a great place to raise my children. What do I do? I always tell people I'm master of nothing, but good at a lot of things. And most of that kind of, in professional terms, ends up surrounding computery stuff, which is probably why I'm editing your videos. But for instance, professionally right now, I'm working on Google Ads SEO, so helping people rank higher with their advertising on Google Ads for their businesses. For instance, I helped Laura with that. When I started doing it, I had no clue what I was doing, but I kind of read through everything and got into it. And I'm sort of adept now. I'm no pro, but like I said, I'm pretty good at it, not a master. And that's kind of been my path all along. Like I can program a bit, I can do database work, I can do web work, but I'm not the best at it by any kind of stretch.
I'm sure, you're a humble person here a little bit. It's also a skill that you can quickly pick up a skill. I think that's a skill for people to have. That maybe they don't have it right away, yet somehow they find a way to open it up and inject themselves with the necessary competencies that can make them at least do it somewhat well.
I agree. I like to think of myself as a problem solver. For instance, I recently fixed our sort of complicated dryer by watching a YouTube video and saved about $1,000. So, just if you can just roll up your sleeves a little bit, you can figure stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, combine that with a little patience too, I suppose, right?
Yeah. But I'm not going to be doing brain surgery on anyone.
Well, no. Yep. Do they actually have a video on YouTube about doing brain surgery?
They absolutely do. I had my hip replaced, total hip replacement in 2016. And before I went into the operating room, I watched how they do it on YouTube. They have everything, unfortunately, that you could conceivably want to see or not see.
Yeah. I mean, there's good stuff, and there's also obviously stuff that we would be best maybe not to watch. Yep. I noticed in the background there behind you some instruments. What can you share about that and how they're connected to you?
So I've been playing guitars and other instruments, but mostly guitar since I was 11 or 12 years old. And I think in my teen years in high school, I joined this 10-piece reggae band called Fugitive. I looked backwards on the string that we were like a Juno-nominated reggae band in the 80s and 90s, and we used to play all over Canada. I still play with the guys. We usually do, in non-COVID times, we do a couple of benefits every year. And for some reason, people still come to see us. So it's always fun. And I've always, just kind of been into music, although I haven't played as much during COVID. I guess I need to have the goal of a show or something to kind of keep me going. But I also, I like fiddling around with recording and all that kind of stuff, because it's all computer related and kind of neat to tinker with.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
So what people have contributed somewhat the most value in your life? Who have been your mentors or people that you've looked up to?
Definitely my mother, who passed away about 20 years ago. She was just a very strong person with a like a dead-on moral compass. If my mom saw something that was wrong, she would speak up and try to fix it. I vividly remember being on a TTC bus on Bathurst on the 7C. Someone was making racist remarks to one of the other passengers on the bus. And she made the bus driver stop the bus and throw him off. And, I was just observing this. I thought that was quite an amazing thing to do. Not only that, I mean, she's the reason we left South Africa. She couldn't stand, the apartheid system of government. We lived very well there, like most white people. She could have had a very easy life. But instead, she, made us pick up the family, come to Canada with no money, because you couldn't take any money out, and start all over again. And she was kind of like the driving force behind my dad's business success, so to speak, because they had some small businesses. And sure enough, when she passed away, it was harder. You could tell it wasn't the same, that he needed her. And I've just always really looked up to her too, because she had a very rare disease called Ehlers-Danlos type 4. And basically it makes your connective tissue, like your cartilage or your veins and arteries, get holes or disintegrate. So it's very painful. Like she'll always have knees going out of joint. But by the end, she started to get, holes in her veins, in her eyes, in her like major arteries. And it was very, 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 very painful. I had to do experimental surgery on her. And, from her early 20s to her, I think she was 59 when she passed. She went through many, many operations, a lot of sickness and pain, but I never heard her cry, whine about it or complain about it. And she always worked, while she could. At the very end, it was difficult for her, but she's just an amazing person. So yeah, like mom is on a pedestal for me. My dad's an amazing guy too, but he's very different. He's not as take charge, so to speak, like my mom.
When did she stop riding the 7C? Because I grew up, well, in my young adult years on Bathurst at 1 block south of Steeles. I took the 7C.
Yeah, I used to take the 7C up to Bathurst and Finch and Steeles to play with my friend who had moved up there. But we lived at Bathurst and Roselawn, just north of Eglinton.
Yeah,
In like the Forest Hill area.
I was just wondering if maybe I knew your mom somehow, indirectly,
Rona.
of course.
Yeah, Rona, Rona.
She ever shop at Lola's Shoes on Bathurst?
I don't know.
Okay. So, I'm trying to open you up because we're going to talk about something that's close to your heart.
Mhm.
And what are the things that you value in life?
Oh, well, definitely family, health are very important to me. Trying to stay healthy. I mean, I have wonderful family and friends, very supportive. It's a small kind of like tight group, but I've literally had the same, 3, 4, 5 best friends since I was in middle school, grade 7 or 8. And we're just also like-minded. There's never been any kind of real irritation between us. They're just people I really value. They think like me. I don't have to argue with them about things. We just kind of click on everything. We always did. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you have, quote, something that might be of difference, it's not seen as a challenge. It's more like an opportunity of something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we pretty much agree on the same things by default. It's probably why we've remained friends so long.
So our conversation today is focused on Afghanistan,
Mhm.
which is a country that has experienced a lot of disruption over the past number of decades. That has culminated in a climate of concern for the safety and well-being of its citizens, most recently. You had a connection with the country through your work, your
Mhm.
computer stuff. How did that happen?
So I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. Uh, there was a company I invested in that was developing a technology and we needed something to market it. Because we couldn't build it, we wanted to have someone build an animation of it, like a very accurate animation. So I went onto a site I like to use. There's a couple of them. One's called Fiverr, one's called freelancer.com. But basically, you can hire people with very particular skills. Often they're in other countries, so it's much more competitive than hiring. I mean, we didn't have a big budget for it, so it's a much more competitive marketplace to get something done, for a bit less than usual, especially if you're, sort of like in a development mode like we were. I went on to freelancer.com and we needed a detailed animation done. And I found a bunch of people and I ended up looking at this guy's work. His name is Arash, and we're going to call him Arash.
Yeah.
I don't have to get into that, but anyway,
Yep.
I want to maintain his privacy. But Arash responded, and he did some work for me, and it was exceptional. He was really really polite, really quick, a great communicator in English, and highly skilled. Like what he gave me, I think for like $50. I don't know if I could have had done here for thousands of dollars. And he did such a great job. I said, listen, I'm gonna tip you $50. I feel bad. You've done such a great job. This is such great work. And I know he wasn't working with the best equipment. I could kind of tell because, you know, I know what he was doing required a lot of sort of computing resources when you're working with animations and things that kind of move. So, you know, we would apologize and say, I'm sorry, it's going to take a day for this animation to render like output. But he would argue with me. He wouldn't want to take the money. It's too much money. It's this. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You're helping me. Like, this is very good. And I never expected that it would be this good. So we kind of developed this relationship while working on these animations where I would come back to him for more and more and more for about on and off for about a year. And he just impressed me. That's the kind of the most I can say about it. I was so impressed, and I guess eventually it started to get a little personal, not very personal, but you know, you're dealing with someone every day in real time on chat, and I just said, so where do you live in Afghanistan? And he said in Herat, Herat, I think. And you know, just asked him about his life there a bit, and you know, he said it's safer now than it was before when the Taliban were there. When he was a bit younger, I think he was 25 when I met him, so they would have been he would have been 5 or 6 or 7 or around there when the war started. And he didn't talk much about that. He said, yeah, it's kind of dangerous to live here, but it's not like people think. And you know, he was not how I would have perceived someone in Afghanistan to be either. That's why it was so surprising for me. And I probably have these biases inside about, you know, how people look and live there from, you know, what we see on TV. But he's a very good looking guy. He's very well dressed. He's very well spoken. And he's definitely very intelligent. And I didn't know about as much about him then as I do now, obviously, because I'm trying to help him. So I've had to get some of his documents, but you know, I'm just I'm always impressed.
Yeah, and I want people to understand too that we're providing a space that of safety because of the unpredictable nature of the circumstances in Afghanistan. So we are using another name for him. So I want people to appreciate that we need to respect the privacy, and not only that, because of the safety concerns that are paramount. As we'll talk more about your efforts to try to make a difference in his life and his family's. So what were your thoughts and feelings when you became aware of the most recent events in the country, Afghanistan, when the United States decided to withdraw all its troops, thus creating a vacuum, thus the Taliban, who were there prior years ago and always on the periphery, just were able to go right back in and take over the country like they hadn't left?
Yeah, I was horrified, and I was really horrified that it happened so quickly, because I mean, that's the one thing that I never thought could happen so quickly. I never actually believed that they had a government that would kind of last on its own, because it's, you know, it's been built on a house of cards from the beginning. But I really didn't think things could change as swiftly as they did. And I was absolutely horrified at the thought of what could be going on. And, you know, they reached Kabul on those days, but they had gone through the rest of Afghanistan, like, you know, like wildfire prior to that. So they had probably hit him already by the time or hit his city by the time I had already you know, figured out that this was going to go down. And he didn't reach out to me or anything. It just occurred to me, you know, as I was sitting here watching the news and reading, and oh boy, I better check on Arash and see if he's okay, because he's someone I know. Why
And
wouldn't
was someone you know, though, I think maybe to be fair, someone you had you cared for in some way, you were concerned for,
I? Definitely. Yeah, I
especially
would
with
like
the,
to think anyone would, you know, check up on someone they even have a kind of like fleeting or you know, distant relationship with. Um, I don't know. Maybe it's just the influence of my mother on me, but I felt it necessary to reach out and ask him if he's okay. And he said, no, not really.
how were you communicating with him?
So we were initially communicating using Freelancer. So you could log into the website with your username and password, and they have a chat capability. But I think there's quite a time difference for the two of us. So, you know, I would leave him once in a while, I would get him live, but generally I would leave a message, how are you? And then I'd hear back, you know, a couple hours later, oh, good. I just, you know, whatever. And I think it's also probably difficult for him there. I don't know what the status of regular electricity is, regular internet, paying your internet bill. Like all this is probably up in the air right now as to how long it will be available and to whom.
Yeah, I mean, things that we take for granted,
Absolutely.
you know, for the everyday lives, that we have running water and the electricity and then the internet. And then with the circumstances, I'm not sure how strong the internet was prior to the Taliban, though with them coming on board in a more profound way,
Yeah.
the future of what all these things that even by Afghan perspective, I would suspect that they didn't know what would happen next.
No, definitely not. And you know, I suspect, well, I'm pretty sure that um, his family welcomed, you know, not with loving arms, the Americans invading their country, but some progressive change. They certainly didn't want to live under Sharia law. I know that, and they are devout people. Um, but you know, I eventually I found out his older sister is university educated in law and politics at the university. He has a degree in computer science, which is why he's so good, obviously, at what he does. And they kind of appreciate the freedoms we have here that they were in some ways receiving because of the U.S. presence.
So was he continuing to remain living in Herat, or was when the Taliban came in,
He
or was,
was,
yeah,
but then, as the story goes, he got a visit from his uncle, and so he's the head of the male head of the family now. His father passed away a few years ago. His father used to work in Iran. I think he was an engineer. There's a whole document they provided about kind of like the story that he wanted me to give to humanitarian organizations, but a lot of you know, identifying yourself and who you are and having a backstory is very important because who your family is makes a big deal in Afghanistan. Like it's very important for him when giving out his identity of his family to include his father, even though his father has passed like a while ago. So, well, back to your question. So anyway, his uncle paid a visit, and his uncle is a big fan of the Taliban. He showed me a picture of his uncle, and you can kind of tell he was like brandishing an AK-47. And I guess his uncle sees himself as the head of the family, and he's going to call the shots, especially when it comes to Arash's sisters. He's got two beautiful sisters. One is a bit older, so probably 28 or 29, and a younger one who I think is either in her mid to late teens. And the uncle, it turns out, is insisting that he will take care of the family and not bother them and not threaten them if his sons can marry the daughters. And this is a big problem for Arash. Like they got into a physical fight in their house. He said everyone was screaming and yelling. His mother got knocked over, and they had to take her to the hospital. She almost had a heart attack. There's all this chaos going on that he doesn't, he doesn't contact me about this stuff. I just read it eventually in the letter that they wrote. It's not like he's telling me any of this in real time. When you contact him and when I speak to him, he's always so positive and he's always so pleasant, and he doesn't gripe about the situation in any way. He just says, kind of laughs at it, which I guess is a way of coping with it. A dangerous situation. It's almost smiley faces and things like that. But he told his uncle in no uncertain terms over his dead body, which is something you over here we kind of say, we just say it as a matter of fact, but it has real implications when you say it there. So he's afraid his uncle will take him up on that offer. So they fled now. They fled to a friend's house who is protecting them until they can find a way to get out, which is going to be a huge undertaking.
Yeah, and I want us to be very sensitive and cautious with regard to, sharing the details.
Yeah,
it's important for us to share details, though. As you well know for sure, that we need to ensure the safety of him and his family, so that you never know, someone might be accessing the information and find out, and then
the biggest fear actually is that somebody takes his phone and sees he's communicating with this a guy in Canada and what we're saying. So I've asked him, what's the most secure way to send each other messages. So we no longer communicate on Freelancer. We use Gmail. I don't know that that's the most secure, but at least he can delete the messages. I don't think you can do it on Freelancer.
So what thoughts came to mind for you when all this circumstance came up, and then you found out that he and his family have gone into quote hiding? What resonated with you?
At first I was angry. I felt very angry that the US had kind of just messed up this country so badly and generally, I was thinking. And then now it's more personal because I know someone who's being affected by this. I know someone whose life's in danger because all of this, because they didn't take whatever steps they needed to make sure either people could get out or could just live in safety. It was a failed waste of time, as we all know. And I felt worried, very worried at first, because I didn't know, what answer I was going to get back kind of every day. And at first, when you see, the scenes of the airport and people rushing the airport and the planes and the gangways and hanging on to planes, it creates a sense of urgency in you. So it created a sense of urgency in me much more than him, because I'm looking at all this and, he's just there living his life and dealing with what he has to deal with every day. It's
Yeah.
the difference between what we have to deal with and what they have to deal with is stark. I mean, he's been around death. He's seen it. He's been around danger. He's always probably been in danger to some degree. And to me, it's just very new. So it's shocking and it's kind of bewildering. You don't know what to do, right? And my first instinct is to help. Okay, that's great. So what do you do to help?
Yeah. What does help look like from your point of view?
Well, that's a great question. I started reaching out to people. First, I asked him. I said, "Listen, do you know anything that we can do?" And he said, "Yeah." Well, he didn't. At first, he said, "Can you reach out to some humanitarian organizations and tell them our story?" And he sent over all their documents and their family history and identification and things like that. And I said, "Sure, of course." And then I tried to figure out which ones to reach out to. And of course, haven't received a single response from any of them, including the one that I thought could be the most helpful in Toronto. It's the Afghan Women's Organization. And they're kind of set up to help people like that, because there's a certain status they have where they can sponsor people.
Yeah.
But it's not as simple as that, because they have to be first, they either have to have permission to leave Afghanistan by the Taliban, or they have to get out on their own, which is very dangerous. So one of the things he's trying to do is immigrate, sorry, not immigrate, but get what's called an e-visa to India. Apparently India is accepting a certain amount of Afghan refugees.
Yeah.
So it's, but it's not going to be a fast process, and he needs to stay safe during that time and be able to take care of his family. So he's applying that way. He's told me by no stretch of the imagination is it going to be quick. And if it fails, they'll have to come up with another plan. And really the only other plan, as I see it and he sees it, is to escape. Pay someone to take them over the border into Pakistan or Iran. And it's dangerous, because if you get caught, big trouble, right?
Well, yeah, and it's not just him, right? There's his family that's accompanying him.
And then now it's his family too. And then they're all caught together. So, and then once you get there, there's a whole other kind of side to it. So what does he do? Is he going to claim refugee status for Canada? How do you do that? So I'm in the process of learning about all this. It's very, very convoluted, to say the least. There's many rules and regulations, and I'm trying to find someone to kind of help me cut through it.
Like an immigration lawyer, or?
Yeah, so you hooked me up with an immigration lawyer. Thank you. She sent me some video to watch, which I still haven't really gotten around to, which I am going to watch though, because I understand now that this is not going to happen quickly. My priority now is making sure that he's okay. Like, for instance, he borrowed $200 from me, and he felt horrible, like so horrible for asking. And I promise I'll pay you back. I promise, but I know he'll pay me back. I don't even want him to pay me back, but I know he's still bidding on projects that he can work on, and he'll get them. I think the problem is he can't get paid on some of these projects because now that the Taliban's in power, they've interrupted how the banking network works. I don't know if you can use PayPal or various other kinds of ways of moving money at the moment. So it's difficult for him. So he's completed some of these freelance consulting things, but he's having difficulty getting paid. So he actually has the money. It's just kind of like in receivables, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'm really curious, and maybe I really don't want you to answer. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm curious. how would he get the money? But don't tell
Oh,
me, because I don't know.
no,
Maybe,
I mean, it's no one could figure this out. But
okay.
so, for instance, we first tried with Western Union, and everything seemed to be okay. You know, from this side of the world, the transaction worked. But on his side of the world, there's no longer Western Union for some reason. So he said, "I'm very sorry." And I didn't send it to him. I'm sending it to a friend of his, so he doesn't have to leave the house because he doesn't want to move around in case he gets spotted, in case his uncle's looking for him, obviously. Um, so I sent it to his friend using MoneyGram. So for now, MoneyGram works. That could change tomorrow, depending on what happens. It's all kind of very fluid right now. What's going on?
Yeah, right.
Everyone's very confused. They don't know what's going to happen. It's just a bit of a mess.
Yeah, like I have these questions, yet in some way, I feel hesitant to have you answer them because it might reveal some, the nuances of how they're doing things that are really attached to safety needs.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's, the fact that people are sending money into the country is going to really hurt anyone because I would imagine, the Taliban were there before and they messed it up and they probably have some clue as to that didn't go over so well with everybody. So maybe we should at least allow people to have money and be able to purchase things, and that will settle people down. You don't want an enraged if you give people
Population.
absolutely nothing, and like what other choice do they have but to revolt? So I think that kind of part of it will be stabilized so they can have at least excuse me, money to purchase things and having like an economy of some sort. So I'm sure plenty of people are sending money now, but it's just, does it always make it? No, things are changing on the ground so much.
Yeah. So how do you, what kind of conversation have you had in whatever manner or form, whether by written or you haven't spoken to him, I guess?
Yeah, it's all been written. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
always my emails are always very like concerned and worried, and his are always they're always kind of jovial. I think I almost feel like he's doing it to make me feel better, just to keep me calm. um, and I suppose if your life's in danger and like what else can you do but kind of put on a happy face to some degree, and that's what he's doing. Like he's trying to obviously stay positive, make me feel not too worried, which it's very nice of him. But I always respond with, like if there's anything, please reach out. Just don't hesitate. Please stay safe. And he's like, yeah, don't worry, I am. I'm taking precautions. We're all good. Um, yeah, so it's almost, I feel like sometimes he has to take care of my feelings when he's really the one who needs taking care of.
You're trying to be empathic with him,
Yeah,
compassionate with him, and he's reversing it back to you that,
yeah,
hey,
exactly.
hey, man, chillax, Anthony. I'm okay. Though, of course, you probably realize deeper that there's much more to the story than he's presenting.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
What do you see as his bigger picture? Like, what does he want to do with his family?
He definitely wants to get out of there, and he'd love to come to the US or Canada. Um, or anywhere for that matter. I think he'd even be comfortable. He'd be comfortable in Iran right now because his family has a history there. I think he even lived there with his father, or the family lived there with his father for some time. So I think just getting out of there and making sure everyone's safe is like priority number one, and then they can kind of worry about the rest. Making a living, building a life. And I've talked to him about Canada, and would say how wonderful it is here compared to other places. I feel, and as I said at the beginning of the show, I obviously this country has made its share of horrific mistakes, the residential schools. It's just it's so heartbreaking, and it makes me so angry. But um, I would we have to deal with those things, I guess, as best we can. But it's still a good place to live, I think, if you can get here. So I'd like to get him here.
And what would it look like for you what do you
Well,
envision for him to be?
yeah, this might be kind of foolish, but I feel obligated now that I've made an offer to him to come here to do whatever I to commit to whatever I can, and if that means helping him financially get out, get here, and stay here, then I'm prepared to do it if I can. Um, I don't know what that involves exactly, but that's my idea of it right now. Anything I can do to help, I'm going to try to do it.
Like a sponsorship of some form?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, there are all types of sponsorships you can do. Like you can get 5 people together and form like a group that sponsors someone. That's what that organization I'm trying to get in touch with, the women's organization, already has in place. I just don't know what the numbers are. I don't know how many people, are how many of these are. I suspect this is going on in other cases. People are trying to get here through all kinds of avenues. So I just might be at the bottom of a long list of calls to return. Hopefully get some help. I'm thinking of I'm going to hire a lawyer just to kind of help me cut through the jungle of information out there. Mostly because I'm somewhat dyslexic, and reading it over and over again, it doesn't always take. So if someone can just kind of show me, that's why I was so grateful that that lawyer sent me a video, because that's like the perfect thing for me to learn from. Just kind of watch and learn.
It's like walking you through things, like a
Yeah.
visual of walking you through steps. And
Yes.
yeah,
I always love those like explainer videos where just like, here's how it's done, and you watch it rather than read about it. Because I find when I read things, I've got to read it over and over and over, and it barely sticks. So that was the problem in high school too.
yeah, I tend to be a more visual person too.
Yeah.
Reading stuff is like I got to keep reading it to connect with the concept and the idea, and
I don't know how
especially
lawyers
when
do
it's
it.
sorry.
I just don't know. I guess lawyers must have a completely different way of processing like information when they're reading this. I look at it and I want to throw up when I read legalese.
Yeah, that's another yeah, that's another show for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So how do you see when do you sort of I know you mentioned about the timeline. That's so open-ended for sure.
Yeah.
What do you see as having anything as a next step that would resonate with you in terms of being more concrete?
When he gets a final decision on whether or not he can get to India, then we can kind of, if it's a yes,
Or is that Pakistan?
India.
It's
Actually
India.
India. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think Pakistan would be like an on-foot escape, but India has a very specific program that he applied to for his family.
Okay.
And just kind of wait and see what happens with that. That's what he's kind of indicated that I should do, because he said right now there's no other way to get out of here. I'm not going to risk going on foot without trying something safer, which makes sense. Although he doesn't think the odds are great. It's still a smart move. He still doesn't feel like it's that dangerous that he needs to move so quickly, because he's protected with his friend's family. So on this side, my plan is just to kind of learn more, so that when something does happen down the road, and it's definitely going to be down the road. I mean, at first I thought, oh my God, we got to get him out of here. How do we get him out of here fast? And very quickly, the reality set in that that's not going to happen, unless there's some kind of miracle. So he's not going to run to the airport with his family and manage to get on a military transport because he's not even anywhere near Kabul. So I'll do what I can on this end to kind of learn how I can help him, and then try to find someone who can best advise me on how to help him as well. So the more I can learn on my own and by reading and watching videos and finding information, obviously the more informed I am, the better I'll be prepared to deal with whichever lawyer I select to help me if I do that. So yeah, I mean, it's day to day trying to figure it out.
So how do you process yourself that way? Because of it's totally, out of your control for the most part.
Yeah, I think I've accepted it's completely out of my control, and I'm just going to do whatever I can when I can, because I can't every day. I still got to work and do other things, and not get too frustrated. In the beginning, I was very frustrated when I found out this is not going to happen quickly, and I was worried about him. But he's kind of put me at ease since then. And then he let me know he's safe and he can continue to stay safe, and then he's got work he can do, and to just and not to worry too much. And the reason I have a lot of faith in him telling me that is because he's been so competent in the past. Like, he's the man of his family. I don't think I was really a man until I was 33 or 34. He's 27 and he's a man. He's dealing with protecting his family. He's had to go up pretty quickly.
What are his sisters and mother doing in the interim time?
Not much. I mean, they're just staying inside. His mother cooks for everyone. I'm sure his sister, the lawyer Paula, the one with the degrees, is reading, and it's interesting because he kind of presents her as she wrote the letter because she's the oldest. Like, she's the person, she's the voice of the letter, whether she wrote it or not. It's interesting to me because he's still the man of the family, but he's got this older sister who's also the leader of the family because of her age in some ways. So it's interesting. I want to ask him about that one day, because I would have expected him to write the letter as the man of the family. This is, kind of what's going on. But maybe she's got more experience with something like that because of her background in law and politics. He's got more of a IT background, and maybe he wouldn't know what to write as well.
Right.
But it was interesting.
So how is your family, your circle of support? What are they thinking or feeling about this?
They've all been very helpful. I mean, they're of course all supportive. If I asked them to do anything, I'm sure they would do it. Like, eventually if I have to try get some support in some way, I don't know, throw a benefit or spread a message on social media, they'll all help me. They're there. They've always got my back.
So why did you accept my invitation to have this conversation? Because this is, public.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I hadn't even thought of that. Well, I think you never know. I mean, the more you can kind of spread the word about something you're doing, you never know. Someone might watch this one day, not tomorrow, not the next day, maybe even in a year, and say, oh, you know what, I could help this guy. Why don't I call him and contact him and see what's, if anything's happened. You never know. So that's one thing I learned about playing in a band to 0 people is you got to put yourself out there if you want to sell the place out eventually. You can't just sit around and do nothing, because then nothing's going to happen. So it's just kind of like another avenue to reach out and possibly get some help.
Yeah, and I just want to put a comment from the crowd there. Just sharing the story is an important step in moving forward with some help, any help. Information is power, and it can lead to opportunity. You know, life is what it is. We never know what the next moment will be and can be.
Absolutely.
You're
Yeah.
still you're still providing yourself as a vulnerable person, which I see as a strength. So when I say that, I don't want you to take it like, hey, it's a power.
No, I know. I get it.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's other people like, should I, could I, would I? You know, it's the people that sit on those thoughts and feelings for whatever reason. It's also the next step is to putting it into action somewhat, which you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
Well, I understand why some people don't. I mean, I've certainly, had those moments where I go, okay, what am I getting myself into here? Because, once you commit to something like this, you
Yeah.
can't just say, hey, you know what, Rash, sorry, something came up, but I'll call you later.
Yeah, right. You can't build somebody's hopes up in some
Yeah.
way. Even if he doesn't say it, he might be internalizing it, the opportunity, because he wants to temper the reality that he's living relative to the possibility of things happening, let alone when they might happen. And
Yeah,
so, he's trying to manage himself. So you put yourself forward, and, there's a responsibility with that.
there is. Yeah, there definitely is. I realize that. And sometimes it scares me, but hey, I think his life's a lot scarier than mine right now.
Uh, I'm sure you feel this is the best thing to do because that's the kind of person you are inside of yourself.
Yeah, well, I think my mama would be proud.
Yeah. And
What
another
she would
sorry, your mom?
I know what she would do.
Well, I mean, you're listening to the right voice.
Yeah, definitely.
And even by listening from the crowd here, my friends and I are actually researching how we can help. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
So what would you hope to happen from the situation? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I would, the dream scenario would be meet him at the airport one day with his family and help integrate them into Canadian kind of society and show them around and let him get on his way with his life and their lives in any way that they would want to. I obviously he's into computers and IT, and he's definitely good at it. I have no doubt he could contribute to society here. I think anyone with what they're going to go through to get here would be able to contribute, just with their kind of like their story alone. But that would be a really great scenario to be able to kind of just see that happen.
So what would you say for anyone who's watching or listening in terms of learning from our conversation on this?
Wow. I don't know. I think you got me tongue tied. I don't know.
That's honest. That's sincere. That's genuine. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that I'm trying to teach anyone anything.
It's not necessarily that you have intention to teach. It's more like what can people pick up from the conversation to say, hey.
Yeah, I think the one thing we can all pick up on is just, how good it is here. With all the the horrible realizations and things going on here, it's still, we're very, very fortunate to wake up in this country every day. And I just, we should have we should feel gratitude. We're in a good place, and we're safe. We're generally safe, and have things. The basic things, the basic things you need.
Yeah, raise things to the conscious level, to connect with it, to appreciate it, rather than just, go through the motions of life and our expectations. This is
Yeah,
how it is. Like, there's no provocation for the challenges that people
yeah,
do experience.
yeah, no, definitely.
Another comment from our audience, raising awareness. Tell the story and put the story out there. Thank you for putting a face to these horrible stories. These are human beings like you and I, and we need to look at ways to help. So you have any thoughts on what's next for you?
Um, no, just keep plugging away. Just take it day by day. Not to get all worked up like I was the first couple of days because of watching CNN and the news, and to just try to be supportive um, and kind of stick to my promise of being a backup if he needs, particularly financial help, because ultimately, if they're going to escape, I would think that's what they're going to need to get out. They're going to have to pay someone to get them out. So, and just be prepared to help them if they ask for it.
Though what I gather, though, there might be a hesitancy to do that, to ask for that kind of help, because maybe culturally or whatever the reason. And so it might require you to just,
Insist.
yeah, I mean, in a respectful way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've already kind of been through that already with this, it started in the very beginning, like just trying to get him to take money for a job really, really well, or jobs really, really well done. He was always so, grateful and no, please, it's too much. And then even with this, a little bit of help, and I keep telling him, listen, don't worry about it, and we can deal with that a lot later down the road if you ever have and feel like you need to repay me. But let's just focus on you and your family's safety right now, and doing what we can to get you out of there. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe the place will turn into a paradise. Maybe the Taliban will all of a sudden become, a lot more, what's the word, progressive than they have in the past, that allow people certain freedoms that would make it tolerable, like letting his sisters continue to study or something like that. That would be wonderful.
Well, I don't know the country as well as I should or could. It's just that the Taliban are now the ruling people. There are other parties. When I say parties, there's other stakeholders there who are not necessarily agreeable with the Taliban, and they're also, in competition in some way.
Yeah.
And that just heightens more the risk and the safety issues.
Absolutely.
As well.
And some of them are worse, like ISIL. They're there in the background.
Yeah.
They would certainly like to make things worse.
So we're going to close out almost. Another comment. Thank you for not being silent. I can hear your emotions in your voice and the empathy in your efforts to help your friend. What anybody want to ask anything or make a comment before we say thank you and good night? So Anthony, what would you like to say at this moment, just as we transition off?
Oh, well, if you know anyone who could help, who has experience with this type of situation, please reach out and Any help or any thoughts would be appreciated.
Okay. How are you feeling right now?
Fine, good, thank you. Thankful it's Thanksgiving, right?
Uh, you can tell me the truth. It's just me and you. Nobody else is listening.
No, I feel great. I really do.
Okay. One step at a time.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting this out there and putting yourself out there and putting yourself forward, and hopefully someday sooner Arash and family will be in a better place of
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wonderful if we could have them on the show.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll you, him, I don't know who else, but yeah,
I'll tell him
absolutely.
you've got a spot booked for him anytime.
Well, does he have access? I mean, he has some internet. Ask him to check out Fenton Mediation after we get this show up, and
Okay.
just for him to see you.
Okay, I will. I'll start editing as soon as it downloads.
Okay. All right. That's cool. So thanks very much, Anthony. And
Thank you.
I'm honored to be with you, and I appreciate it very much.
Ditto, right back at you.
Okay. So we're going to say goodnight and see you again soon.
Okay.